Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So we are back again with some more tournament gameplay from the Katinga Cachalote Carnage Cup. So this is my round 4 matchup, and yeah, as before, this is the best of 3 series, so we're going to get stuck in here with game 1. I'm going first, so let's see what our starting hand is. And overall, I think it's an okay starting hand. Obviously, the blue throat's a really strong card to get down early on. 3 different foods, can go in the grasses or the wetlands, and obviously you can choose what food you want, and then all players are going to gain that kind of food. So really nice to get that early. Lots of egg space as well. Obviously going first here, I'm straight away looking at that violet green swallow in the tray. That's a really nice pickup to get. And yeah, I think, paired with the blue throat in the grasslands, that's going to get me eggs and food and card cycle as well. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking, I can keep the food for the blue throat, keep an extra card, probably doesn't matter what it is, and then I can grab the swallow, play the blue throat, lay eggs a couple of times, that'll give me the food to play the swallow, and then I can play that and just start cycling through with this extra card. So yeah, obviously the kind of weakness of this setup really is not having that wetland bird, so not being able to get the card draw. But I quite like this as a start where you get one of these tuck and draw style birds in your grasslands, and then just lay eggs a few times, cycle through, and I think after a few turns you can expect to find something that can go in the wetlands and it's not going to cost that much food. And yeah, if you've got something like the blue throat there that's going to be able to get you the food to play that at the same time, that's a really good option. So yeah, obviously there has to be some kind of caution with the blue throat, because you are giving food to your opponent as well, and that's so valuable early on in the game. Particularly when you don't have a bird in your forest. One food is 1 turn's worth of activity. If I'm giving my opponent food, they can then essentially save that turn that they would have had to gain a food from the bird feeder, and that can really just accelerate the game at the start. So yeah, I don't normally like to just spam food in this way, unless I'm getting a clear benefit and can hopefully make more use of that benefit than my opponent. But yeah, I mean, obviously for me, if I can get those 2 worms and get that swallow down that a little bit quicker, I see that as a definite advantage. So here we go, onto my first turn. My opponent just keeping a single bird and 4 food. So yeah, as kind of mentioned, straight away go for that swallow. I think whenever you go first and you see that kind of bird, you have to grab it. Obviously very flexible. It fits into any kind of strategy, particularly the swallow being able to go in any habitat. If you put that in the forest, you can easily get cards and food at the same time. You put it in the wetlands, that forms a nice tucking engine. But equally in the grasslands, as I intend to put it, it's very nice indeed. So yeah, my opponent there goes for cards and immediately reveals Eastern Phoebe for me. So again, kind of like the swallow, I think it's one of those birds where when you see it, you just have to grab it. And yeah, obviously the Phoebe's going to give worms, and that can easily be used to play this violet green swallow as well. So yeah, the bird that my opponent grabbed was the golden eye. So yeah, if I'm going to really go heavy on this grasslands, I'm not only going to have to worry about all this extra food I'm giving away, but all the eggs as well that they're going to be getting from that golden eye. So yeah, you see, I'm kind of thinking carefully about the order in which I do things here. Do I get the Phoebe down first and then maybe use the worms from that to play the swallow first, or do I play the blue throat first and then use the food from that to play the Phoebe? Lots of different ways you could play this. I think in the end, yeah, I play the Phoebe because they know that I have that card, whereas they don't know that I have the blue throat. So any time when you can do something that keeps information hidden from your opponent and makes no difference to you, I think it's worth doing that. So yeah, obviously I can play the Phoebe, I can lay eggs. That gives me the worm back that I used to play that. And then, I have the choice of either playing the blue throat, or I can lay eggs again, get an extra worm and play the swallow, and yeah, start cycling cards. So my opponent go for eggs. I think, again, as I said, with the 4 food, 1 bird start, that's normally a signal that the starting hand wasn't great. And I think particularly probably didn't have a wetland bird, which is why they immediately went for that golden eye. So for them, I think they are just going to start trying to dig through the deck, see what they can get. And obviously, for now, they don't need to worry about a forest because I'm going to be giving them some free food. Obviously getting that cavity nest down with the little owl was nice. That's going to get them 3 eggs as well. So yeah, like I said, does need to be some caution here for sure, in terms of giving too much away to my opponent, but yeah, with this kind of start, I don't really think I had too many other options. Obviously, the Cardinal in my hand could be one that I look to play, but it's not a particularly strong power. And yeah, I'd rather kind of keep that to tuck under the Swallow. So yeah, as I said, I chose to go for the laying eggs twice, get the worms. I just want to get that extra card cycle a little bit sooner. So, hopefully I can find that nice wetland bird, maybe at the end of this round or at the start of next round. So yeah, my opponent keeps digging through the deck, and I'm going to be doing the same very soon now I've got this Swallow down. So yeah, pretty straightforward couple of turns. Last 2 turns in this round, I'm going to lay eggs, obviously tuck the Cardinal, see what I can get. But then also that Phoebe will give me the worm that I need to play this Blue Throat. That's going to put me on 3 birds for this end of round, which I feel like should be enough to at least get a tie. Obviously my opponent is on 2 birds at the moment, but just given kind of their access to the resources maybe isn't great. So I'd be surprised if they do get to 4 birds. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see though. But obviously first tuck, not really what I'm looking for in the Warbler. But yeah, obviously once I play this Blue Throat, that gives me a lot of egg spaces, which is really, really nice in this kind of engine, because it just means it gives me, there's 1 or 2 extra turns, laying eggs, tucking cards, see what I can get. And obviously, like I said as well, being able to go into this next round, obviously going second rather than first, but there will still be a new tray that I can look at. So hopefully, yeah, there's something good that I can tuck under the Swallow to draw from the tray, but we shall see. And yeah, as I said, get the Blue Throat down. My opponent playing the Honey Buzzard, I think that's a really good play for them. I'm just kind of getting that passive food generation. These kind of end of round powers, if you can get one of them down in round 1, that's basically the rest of the game. Every round you're going to benefit from that. So really, really strong to kind of get that down. And yeah, they managed to do that without paying any food really, because both of the food they used to play came from me. And yeah, they didn't have to waste turns doing that. So yeah, we go to the end of round. They do just have those 3 birds, obviously, after the Honey Buzzard. So we tie, and we go here into the next round with this fresh tray. So a pretty good tray all in all. Now, obviously, that Fish Crow probably the stronger bird there. So I'd be expecting my opponent to take that. But that Willet is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm really, really hoping they leave that. I'm kind of expecting that they don't, because obviously their wetlands isn't in a great position either. So I think even just some kind of second wetland bird there to just push that wetlands out another spot, get them the extra card draw, would be really good. And yeah, like I said, expected them to take it, but was hoping they didn't, and very, very glad indeed that they didn't. So yeah, I think for me, now it's kind of a toss-up between the Willet and the Coop. And I think in this position, really, the Coot is probably better for me, purely because it has extra egg spaces. So, again, like the Blue Throat, just having that kind of bird, it's going to allow me to lay eggs more turns, which means that it's going to be more points for me at the end of the game. Obviously, the Coot's power as well, with that tuck and draw, kind of similar to the Swallow, but obviously restricted only to the wetlands. It is still going to be useful because it's going to let me look at extra cards and obviously score points whenever I am taking that wetlands action. So yeah, all in all, pretty good bird for me. I think I can look to get that down and start drawing some cards hopefully. And yeah, my opponent meanwhile is setting up a pretty good forest. So they played the Pleated Woodpecker. So that's another thing I'm going to have to kind of pay attention to and bear in mind that I might be getting some free eggs in the cavity nests. Obviously at the moment getting pretty full on those spaces, so I just have to be mindful that I make sure that I'm laying eggs either on this Coot or this Blue Throat, and try and keep space available on the Phoebe and the Swallow as much as possible, just so I can make sure I'm benefiting and not missing out on those free eggs. And here we go, we get our first free egg from Pleated Woodpecker. So yeah, obviously getting pretty full on those 2 nests, so I'm going to make sure that when I'm discarding off that nest. So yeah, I was kind of looking at the oyster catcher here. I think this is a pretty good option to go for. Go for from the deck instead, just in case I get something better. And really, I think that Eleanor's Falcon works as well. I think any of these kind of 2 food birds that have decent point returns or decent brown powers, they're going to be really, really easy for me to play, because the Phoebe's going to get me a worm, and then the Blue Throat can get me anything else. So yeah, this Eleanor's Falcon could go down straight away. And yeah, I was thinking about picking up the oyster catcher, but my plan here is that I want to lay eggs on this next turn. And so if I have 2 birds in my hand that I want to play, that leaves me with nothing to tuck. So it's always kind of better to have something to tuck, and then maybe I can pick up the oyster catcher with that action. But yeah, my opponent on their next turn, they play the yellow hammer, and that was a really, really good play for them in this position because, like I said before, I'm giving them so many food, so many eggs. With this oyster catcher as well, if I play that, I'm going to be giving them a card. So I think any time in these kind of situations where your opponent is giving you lots of resources, that makes these yellow hammer style birds even more playable. Obviously, the real kind of nuance with those birds is that you have to take every action, and then you get an extra play at the end of the round. But that can be really, really tricky to manage if you don't have enough access to resources in order to manage that. So yeah, I think obviously their card draw is probably the limiting factor at the moment, given their wetlands. But yeah, with something like this oyster catcher giving them a card, particularly knowing that I'm going to have to give them a pink power here to kind of add to their golden eye, yeah, that's going to really help them out with their extra eggs as well. And yeah, I'm still giving them 2 food a turn. They've got this really strong forest, so I would not be surprised at all if they're able to really maximize on this yellow hammer throughout the rest of the game. So yeah, I take the cuckoo there purely because they don't have a bowl nest. So if they do choose to take the yellow build cuckoo, then they're not going to be able to utilize that, at least for a little bit, until they can get a bowl nest down. Whereas with this common cuckoo, they do have the ground nest that it can lay eggs into through the yellow hammer. So yeah, I'm probably not going to play it myself, but it's just a card for tucking, so it's still useful. It's still going to help score me points, and yeah, cycle through with that swallow and see what I can get. So unsurprisingly, they do indeed take the common cuckoo, the yellow bill cuckoo, so I'm going to be left with the quail. And yeah, it might work, it might not be a bad option. Kind of as I said, egg space is at a premium. This is going to give me a lot more egg space, but at the same time, that brown power is going to be sort of passively filling up with eggs, which is good because it's scoring points, but it is kind of making the problem a little bit worse in terms of filling up on egg spaces. So yeah, my opponent there, they go for fish crow in the wetlands, which is not something you ordinarily see outside of kind of these wetland tucking engines that generate eggs that you can then discard through the fish crow. But I thought that was a really, really good play in this position. Again, like I said, I'm giving them loads of eggs. They've got this pleated woodpecker to get more eggs. So yeah, just kind of having that option as a second wetland bird, but then also potentially get any food they want at the same time, while also helping clear out some of these cavity nest spaces that they're filling up. That's a really good play for them. And yeah, obviously no shortage of food at the moment, but just having that flexibility of maybe getting what you need for the yellow hammer is going to be really, really good. So yeah, we come here with 1 turn left. Obviously, this end of round goal, being birds in the forest, I don't have any. And kind of like I said when I picked up the cuckoo, probably not planning on actually playing it. But I think I kind of had to here. Obviously, it's 4 points on its own, but it's going to get me a couple of extra for this end of round goal. And, if my opponent is going to use this yellow hammer, they are going to have to lay eggs at least once in each round. So I can be pretty sure that I'm going to get at least 2 free eggs. Maybe I get more in the late game if they're going to sort of pivot to some grasslands, point scoring engine that way. So yeah, it's okay, I think, in this position. But like I said, the egg space is going to be at a premium. So that's where birds like this northern shoveler in my hand are really, really going to come in handy, because that's got plenty of egg spaces that this common cuckoo can lay eggs onto. And so as expected, we do get absolutely destroyed in the end of round goal, but we do qualify and get those 2 points, which is what matters in the end. So yeah, we come into this third round. We go first, so we get a fresh look at the tray. And I quite like the look of that dark-eyed junco. I think, particularly if I am going to get some more wetland birds down, I think particularly the shoveler, to get me even more cards. This junco is going to be really handy for getting some extra points through the tucking, but also maybe that little bit of extra food. Either additional food that I need, or maybe it means I can start skipping these cult food powers a little bit more. Obviously, like I said, kind of spamming these and giving so many free foods to your opponent alongside the free eggs can be a bit risky. So yeah, you'll see I was kind of weighing up, do I lay eggs and then tuck one of these 2 birds, or do I draw cards myself? Ideally, I would have looked to get down one of these wetland birds before drawing cards. but I really want to be playing both of these, so I didn't really want to be laying eggs here and tucking one. So in the end I do, you see, go for cards and yeah, go for 2 off the top. Probably not going to play that bed sparrow, so that can get tucked. We grab the Junko, and yeah, all in all, pretty happy with that. I think my mistake there was leaving the chaffinch though, so I kind of looked at that as not really a bird that was going to work so well for me. But what I didn't think about was that final end of round birds with tuck cards. So you know, obviously at the moment my opponent's not got any. If I play the Junko, I'm going to have 3, so I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to be in a really good position here to win the end of round goal. But yeah, you know, my opponent can easily grab that chaffinch, as they do indeed straight away. And yeah, I mean, even if they play that on the forest and only get 1 activation off it, that is going to win them that end of round goal. And that is a huge point swing late in the game, obviously in addition to all those tuck cards. So yeah, I don't think they know that I'm planning on playing this Northern Shovelet in my hand, but certainly that is going to be, you know, so helpful for them as well if I'm giving away extra cards to then be able to tuck under their chaffinch. So yeah, we are going to lay eggs here. We're going to tuck the falcon. So yeah, I think it was kind of a little bit too late maybe for the falcon. I think certainly when I had that Merganser in my hand and I'm trying to prioritize between the 2, obviously the falcon's worth more points, but the Merganser has that extra egg spaces. So, you know, again, egg space really at a premium, especially these cavity nests. If my opponent is going to use their pleated woodpecker quite a lot, then I'm going to need to be wary of that. So yeah, my opponent gets the dick thistle down, so I think they are starting to pivot at least a little bit into this grasslands. Obviously they don't have anything at the moment, and you know, knowing that they're going to need to lay eggs for using the Yellowhammer, I think it is worthwhile at least getting something down that's going to help score points. You know, some nice brown powers for sure, a good option to have. And of course, it is going to help for that final end of round goal birds with tuck cards. So yeah, for me, obviously get the Junko down. And then when we come to our next turn here, you see my opponent get the chipping sparrow down. So yeah, really kind of going a little bit more heavy on that grasslands. But yeah, for me, I can now lay eggs. And this is going to give me 3 foods. Obviously the Junko is going to get me a seed. So pretty straightforward, tuck that Griffin Vulture. Almost certainly too late for that. And then yeah, I can gain a seed with the Blue Throat. Tuck the Merganser. You know, like I said, was considering playing it, but I think I just really needed to tuck there, the extra point and the extra card cycle. Kind of looking at this thrush, but yeah, again, go from the deck, see what we get. And then obviously that worm from the Phoebe. So yeah, I'm now in a position where I can play that Shoveler. I could probably draw cards maybe for the last time. And then the rest of this game is just going to be laying eggs, hopefully getting some food to play some nice big point birds as well. And so we come ahead to our last turn. You see I did play the Shoveler. And my opponent did start laying eggs as well, so they had a couple of turns laying eggs. So definitely having all these extra ground nest spaces are going to come in handy. So here we go, we're going to go for cards. Hope we get some good ones. Definitely that black crown night heron, really strong. Prairie chicken good as well. Obviously the seed's going to be really easy to get hold of. And then yeah, I'm definitely looking at this hermit thrush. My bonus card that I haven't really touched on yet in this game, the forester, probably a lost cause at this point. You know, you need 3 birds to meet the lower threshold for that. So unless I get really lucky and find a couple of double birds that I can just get 3 birds down in one turn and really max out, or at least hit the lower bound of that bonus card. Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to ignore your bonus card if you're not really anywhere near meeting it, and you know, just focus on playing other big point birds. You know, particularly if I can play this prairie chicken and maybe gamble on a different bonus card that I can get, or just lay eggs. As I'm definitely planning on doing in this final round and trying to score points that way. And so we reach the end of round. My opponent's sniping that end of round goal. They do play the extra bird in the forest, being that common chaffinch that I talked about before. So yeah, really kind of good for them in 2 ways. Obviously winning that 3rd end of round goal, but that puts them in a really strong position as well for this last end of round goal. So yeah, obviously if they are going to continue using this Yellowhammer, they're going to need 1 turn of gaining food, and so that's going to be the turn where presumably they are going to tuck a lot of cards and obviously get points from that and the end of round goal as well. So yeah, I think they are going to need to draw a lot of birds. Obviously my Shoveler giving them 1 in the last round as well was definitely helpful, but yeah, for me I think I'm just going to try and play some of these birds. So Obviously, I've got 3 pretty nice birds in my hand. Kind of got to choose 2 of them because with only 5 turns left, if I'm going to play 3 of them, that's 3 turns playing birds and only 2 turns laying eggs, and I can't get enough food to play all 3 of those. So yeah, you see, I'm kind of thinking, I'm looking at the cherry, I'm thinking, is it worth the thrush, or is the prairie chicken, is that going to be worth the gamble? I think in the end, the prairie chicken is the one I'm going to go for, and yeah, kind of primary reason is the egg space as well as that bonus card. So yeah, I am, you'll see, already kind of coming pretty close on the egg spaces, so only 3 egg spaces left, which means I definitely needed to play a bird before I laid eggs again. Otherwise I was going to miss out. But equally, like I said, my opponent is going to be laying eggs at least 1 turn this round, so they can use their yellow hammer power, and just being able to have some extra ground nest spaces through this prairie chicken, definitely going to help out from that perspective. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking play the prairie chicken, see what bonus card I get. Maybe that's going to steer my thinking in terms of what birds I'm going to look to play out of the other 2. So yeah, I played it. They played the hooded merganser, which I found quite funny because it's not normally a bird you see, but whenever you see something like that, it's going to be for a bonus card. So it's going to make sense at the end. But here we go. We play the prairie chicken and we get the ethologist, which yeah, really, really good pickup. I think that's one of the safest bonus cards to be picking up through these kind of bonus card giving birds, because you're almost guaranteed 4 points from it. I think it's really rare that you have an end board where each habitat only has 1 power color in it. You're almost guaranteed to have at least 2, sometimes 3, without even trying. So yeah, really, really satisfying to get that. And 4 points from a bonus card late in the game, in addition to the bird points and all those egg spaces, I will take it all day long. So yeah, my opponent going for extra cards, I think they are just really setting up for that chaffinch and maybe some nice bird to play with the yellow hammer as well. But for us, we are gonna lay eggs here, and obviously the problem being with these 2 birds is that none of them eat seeds, so I can't just lay eggs once and get the food for it, because yeah, I get 3 food, but 1 of them is a seed, and so that's not going to be enough. So I do have to kind of decide here, and I go for the night heron as the one to keep, purely because it's more points. The thrush, it's 7 minus 1 egg for 6 points, whereas the night heron is 9 minus 2 eggs for 7. So neither of them have impact on the bonus cards or the end of round goal. So yeah, doesn't matter from that perspective. Really, I kind of have to be careful and think about the food that I am going to use, certainly between this Phoebe and this blue throat. So you'll see I did skip the blue throat before, but I'm activating the Phoebe there. So kind of what I'm thinking is on this last or penultimate turn, I'm going to lay eggs, I'm going to tuck on the Junco, get a seed, and then I can use the blue throat to get either a fish or a rodent, and then I'll be able to play that night heron on the last turn. It's going to cost me that extra food because I'm going to have to pay 2 for 1 with the 2 seeds, but I think that's okay. I'm still going to be able to get it down, and yeah, obviously potentially food comes into it for a food tiebreaker, but my opponent has got so much food at this point because obviously they've been using their forest. I've just been absolutely spamming food at them all game. They've had this honey buzzard as well, getting them passive food generation between the rounds. So yeah, I don't think me saving 1 or 2 food here is going to make a difference on any sort of tiebreaker. But yeah, here we go. 2 turns left. My opponent getting food, so they give me a free egg, which is okay for me because I still have the space. So I was kind of beforehand contemplating whether it was worth discarding one of these foods and then maybe not skipping one of the food gaining powers. But yeah, now that I don't have the space, that definitely made my mind up. So yeah, as kind of mentioned, we'll tuck the finch, get a seed, and then it doesn't matter, fish or rodent from the blue throat. Obviously, I'm going to miss that last tuck on the swallow, which is a little bit of a shame. But if it means that I end my game with no cards in hand and no food left over, that's always kind of a sign that you've played as optimally as you could. Obviously there'll be little things here and there that I could have done differently, but yeah, I mean, when you end with loads of cards or loads of food, it does kind of point to maybe spending too many turns gaining food or too many turns drawing cards and not enough turns laying eggs or playing big point birds. So yeah, I was pretty happy with this. Obviously, filling up on the egg space there. I'm kind of hoping that my opponent doesn't lay eggs this turn, because it is going to mean that I miss out on a free egg. So yeah, we come to our last turn, and they do indeed lay eggs, so that was a point missed out. Yeah, always frustrating when that happens late in the game, but I don't think there was too much I could do about that. We play the Night Heron, as mentioned, then my opponent is going to get their free action with the Yellow Hammer. And yeah, you know, when this happens late in the game, it's always a massive uncertainty because your opponent could have anything. They could have Benani's Eagle, they could have Atlantic Puffin and draw a 7 or 8 point bonus cards. There can be potential huge point swings from those late game actions, and you just have no sight of it and no kind of control over what's happening. So yeah, it's always a little bit kind of in the dark, kind of unexpectedly seeing and waiting what they're going to do. So you see my opponent, they went with the Painted Bunting. Again, yeah, kind of gambling on the bonus card to see what they get. But yeah, thanks to Chaffinch, they win the end of round. Really strong performance there, and we go into the scores. So yeah, I have to say I felt pretty confident going into this. So pretty close on bird cards, but obviously bonus cards, I think they must have got a good pickup with the bunting there. Obviously, as I said as well, end of round goals, they really were strong. But this is kind of where I'm going to hope to pull it back. Obviously the eggs, plenty of those, still pretty close. It is going to come down to tuck cards, and we do in the end just about sneak it, 107 to 104. So yeah, I was not expecting it to be so close. I felt a lot more comfortable going into that than I thought it was going to be, maybe a 10-point difference or so. But yeah, obviously a decent pickup from the Painted Bunting, but they could have got a slightly better one. Maxing out Fishery Manager was good for them. But yeah, just all that extra food left over. I think I was quite fortunate in a sense because if my opponent had found a common starling or something like that, one of those birds that lets you discard food and turn those into tuck cards, I think any of those, if they played that, they would have won the game because I was just throwing food at them all game. And it was a big risk, certainly, as I said at the start. It saves turns, it just helps them get more birds down, particularly with this Yellow Hammer. But I think in the end it was a risk that paid off. And yeah, it just helped obviously get me all the food to play all these big point birds and get me the win in the end. So there we go. It's a win in game 1. But this is not over yet. It's a 3-game series. So yeah, plenty more Wingspan to go in this series. And yeah, stay tuned if you want to keep up to date with the other games in this series.